Guys, how are you doing? Welcome to another session of Unreal Engine 5 live streams. We're gonna work on environments today, but first I want to know in the chat, like, who has worked in environments before? Who have tried to make an environment before? And how was your experience? Because for me, it started many years ago. And like many of you, I had like some small projects or some other maybe made or big projects that I was working on. And there's always the question of, I don't know where to start, right? I don't know where to start making environments. So it is quite a common question, actually. Back in the day, we're talking about Unreal Engine 3, it was quite harder. Technically speaking, making environments was a bigger challenge because of a lot more limitations. So you had to get a lot of creativity going on to think about how you will create your level. So over the years of creating environments, probably the last almost 3 years working at Ubisoft as an environment artist, and then working for myself for other small projects, I kind of learned the key workflow to create some environments. And so far, this is a real project. This is not a like an environment showcase where you will just have it for your portfolio just to show off. It's not. It's a real game project. It's a project where it involves gameplay. Like, for example, I can play here, and it's like turn-based strategy game, and I can just select one of these guys and attack and whatever. So everything here has collision. Actually, everything here has collision. Everything needs to be tested. You can go up or down or things like that. It's very different from making a piece that is only visual. It's only visual. You don't really need to worry about technical constraints. You just make it pretty. That's it. And that's usually what the companies ask you when you want to apply for a game company. They ask you to make an environment with the prettiest environment you could make. But the thing is, that thing they ask, and they think the thing you do inside the company, or if you're working for yourself, you're working in a project, then you will see it like it's totally different, because there is gameplay, there is collision. I can check the collision assets here. You will see that everything has collision. So it needs to be playable, and at the same time, it needs to look good. So yeah, I can't say takes too much time. It is. It is. I use Substance Designer, Auckland, to make your textures before. It is quite the industry standard. I highly recommend you, if you are into texture making, you need to learn Substance. It is quite a good software for you to use. All right. So let's get started, because I want to start showing you how this project looked. Now, if you take a look at this screenshot, and then the image I just show you guys, how long you think it has happened since the beginning of this level creation. Just tell me a time frame. Like, do you think it's like 3 months, 4 months, 2 weeks, 1 month? Because I started working on this not so long ago, and I was busy with other projects, so I couldn't like dedicate my time. Like normally in a studio, you will dedicate like 4 hours a day or five. Nobody works 8 hours, man. That's a lie. That's a lie. There are a lot of those times goes into coffee, into talking, into meetings. Nobody works 8 hours. No one can do that. Not this kind of job. But let's just say five. Normally in a job you have like at least 5 hours a day for 5 days a week. I had much less than that. I had like 2 hours a day, and not every day. Really like 3 days a week. 4 in the best case. Earning 50, 40. 1 2 hour for that box modeling. Kind of accurate. Kind of accurate. But I mean the final result, not this one. This one. Because it's the same layout. I mean, it's hard to tell because you have all the assets here. But it is. Let me see if I can find the... Yeah, I think it's this part that has the same screenshot. Okay, so obviously I didn't model the assets. That will take me a long time. But overall, everything took around 3 weeks. 3 weeks to go from what you see here to what you see there. So I'm not working full time, just like 2 hours a day or something. So obviously, if you need to model stuff, that takes quite a while. That's why usually companies have like the level creation and the modeling part separated, because it just takes time, right? So I highly recommend you, if you're like a small game developer, try to use as much leverage as possible. Like use assets, use whatever you need. At the beginning, when I was learning, I was making everything. I was modeling, I was texturing, I was doing the level, I was doing everything. And I highly encourage you to do that if you're into learning. But if you want to finish a project, use the best tools you have to do that. So I think this screenshot here is from here. I believe I think it's this area. Yeah, this area. I don't know if you can see it, but it's the same one. Now you will see that things change, obviously, and those are not the you don't need to follow exactly the blockout, but we will take a look at everything little by little, okay? So no worries. So you can see I'm starting to add these assets into the level. Starting to replace. My plan is always try to remove the blockout. Then start adding some decoration for the ground. You know, a lot of people ignore the ground. And you know, the ground probably is 50% of your visual. Like you say, like the whole thing you see, maybe 50% of the time is the ground. You always need to have a ground, might as well make it pretty. So I also spend some time in the ground. And then add more assets. Add more modular pieces. Start changing things little by little. And then suddenly all those blockout pieces are gone and you end up with this. So, how was it done? Okay, because this is for a real project, usually you have a lot of time constraints, and Unreal give you a lot of tools to work on where you can make your life easier. Okay, so how this works is that we are using a lot of hierarchies here. Like, for example, if this is a house, you will think of it as modular pieces. Like the whole house is on layer 1, right? Maybe the walls are like this. These are the walls. This is layer 2. It's layer 2. And maybe like you have a door, you have some windows, you have the garage, a window here, and all that. It's layer 3, right? So inside these blueprints, you will find that you will only work with the red one, which is this one, layer 1. And it makes very easy because when you're creating a level, you don't want to move all the pieces. Like you want to move the window here, you want to move the column, you're essentially moving everything, and that takes a lot of time. I don't know, like if you work on a level before, you should be very familiar that, for example, the only part that this level doesn't have a hierarchy is just this static mesh here. So if you want to move it, you need to control click here, select all of those, and it's not exactly the best idea. So all the things that you see here are actually blueprints. They are not we don't work with static meshes themselves. We use the blueprints so that we can decorate the level faster. For example, I want to create an extension of this. Maybe I can use Alt and click, and I can just put it here. And there you go. Now you have an extension, and then you can play your game. And then you can just work on this if you want it. Or maybe you want to add another floor, or you can just use this roof to just put it here in position, just like this, for example. And you can rotate it because different sides of the cube have like a different layout, so you can rotate them and you will notice like it's the same asset between this one and this one. Obviously, I will call this environment maybe like 60% done because the gameplay is not finished, so it doesn't make any sense to add little details here. What you're seeing here, it's a rough base that doesn't have much identity. Like if I ask you what is it, it's just like Middle East architecture somewhere around the desert maybe. So this is basically your base, and then on top of it you will add your personal touch, which in our case we have a lore of our game, and the city's energy is based on people's emotions, and they create these statues and these kind of magic elements that give life to the city and give energy. So this is like a layer on top where you add the lore, and maybe you can add another layer of storytelling here, like I don't know, someone was selling fruit here and something happened and there was fruit in the ground or whatever. You can get into those little details later. For now, we're focusing on the base, which is basically the gameplay, and the overall feeling of the map. So this is not by all means finished work, but it's a good start because polishing is much easier. Once you have this, the hard part is already done. When you want to polish, maybe you want to have some flags representing the faction of your city. You can put them here to give some personality to those assets, because those assets are very generic, right? So I'm gonna go through your questions, and we will continue. Hey, Italian game dev? No, but from my nose, maybe you think I'm Italian. I could be, but I'm not. I'm not. Okay. So this is Okan, yours a very important question. Your problem is I give too much time for an asset. I'm not familiar modular asset creation. That's one of the biggest mistakes that people make at the beginning, is that they think about creating the modular pieces first before creating the environment. So if before having something like this, this is not modular. All these pieces, let me see if I can find them on the level. I'm sure they are somewhere around here. Let me just model something. All these pieces here, they are not modular. You see? Because some people think like, oh, okay, like I need to make the modular pieces. For example, this is my wall, and then I need to duplicate my wall so I can have like a complete segment. And now what I need to do is just to go here and, you know, maybe add more details here. For example, let me do something quick here. I can just go here. I can extrude. Do something like this, accept. And now you will see that all my assets, because they are modular, they are updated. And then I can put some textures on it. And you know, that's how you finish your game. That way, it's very hard when you don't know what you're creating. That's why we start with these big pieces that they used to be here. I already delete them, but you can see them here. They are not modular at all. I'm not thinking about modular pieces. I'm thinking about just create the layout. That's it. Just create something fun to navigate, something that is within the space of the gameplay, like maybe it's not too big, not too small, and just to start with something. So you don't need to create the modular pieces first, okay? So that's one big mistake. Later, I will show you how to create those. Just stick around, you will see what I mean by that, okay? Sammy from Brazil. Hello, how are you? How are you guys? Much love from Brazil. I am from Latin America, but I don't speak Portuguese. Sorry if I miss some of your comments, because there are quite a few to read. Small or mid levels, it's okay, but what do you think about open world design? It's the same. It is the same. It's really the same. It's the same workflow. And I can tell you, like, I used to work for Ubisoft. Ubisoft is known for creating open worlds, maybe a little bit too big. And, you know, it's the same workflow. It's the same workflow. Okay. .3D modeler questions. I'll get back to you later. Okay, so there are a lot of questions. If I go one by one now, I won't be able to show you what I want planned for this session, but I will go back to them once I finish the thing that I want to show you. Okay, so you have your blockout level. Then where do you go from there? Well, you need the modular pieces. One, I'm gonna show you what is a modular piece here. Let's how to edit. You will see that each one of those, it's a single asset, right? And if I take a look at those assets, you will see that I have some wood planks, some decoration for the roof, some columns, some floor assets. It's a lot. It's a lot. So I start with the blockout I had, and just imagine I have a gray box here, and I just start putting those modular pieces here until I have roughly the same size that I had before. Now, a lot of questions that people ask is, what if it's not exact, right? What if my, the blockout is like very exact? This is like 1000 centimeters by 500 centimeters, and the one you're creating, the modular pieces you have, because sometimes you're not creating those and you just have to work with what you have. And it's not like 1000 width, it's like 950. And I can use my assets? No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, for small little things, it doesn't really matter, because when you put the assets in the environment, things are gonna change. The initial blockout that you had, it's gonna change. That's the nature of it, because assets by nature are from different size, and you just can't fit everything at the same place. So don't worry too much about it. So I have these assets, and I have quite a few assets here. They're not the best example. I leave this one here because this one was when I was testing the workflow. And there are a few mistakes that I have here. You can see that I have some assets here, a lot of them. And I have them here. The same here. I have some small assets that I can add for decorating the levels. Same here. And I can put a ground on top. And just like that, that's your level instance blueprint, right? If you want to create a level instance blueprint, it's very simple. Let me grab an asset. Grab a box and a stairs. And if you create those, right click, level, create packed level actor. If you have actors that are not static meshes, you cannot create a packed level actor, because this is only for static meshes. You need to create this one. Create a level instance, which basically you can put any kind of actor there. So you can go here, click OK, and then you save the asset. Okay, so once you have it, then no worries, you will have your level instance blueprint. So why this is a bad example? Because the graph I show you, we used to have pieces here, have the big one, but we also have smaller pieces here, and we also have smaller pieces like this door, or these windows here, these smaller assets. And as you can see here, there's only one level instance blueprint. which means if I want another door, for example, I will need to change this asset and I will update everyone at the same time. Now, if you don't know what this level instant blueprints does, I'm going to show you very quickly. I'm going to move the door here. Going to see that this asset is here. I'm going to click yes. I'm going to check out. And now you will see that all my assets, the door, it's gone. Right. So the beauty of this workflow is that you don't need to update the whole level. You just need to update the blueprints you have, and then all your level will be updated. So now, what size you create for this? It depends on your project. For our project, our levels are small. Like this is considered a small level. Like the gameplay area is only this. This is not an open world. So I want to be very flexible with the assets. Like for example, I could make this a blueprint if I wanted and create another asset that I can use. I could do that. I could go level and create pack level actor, and I will create a new asset. So I will go into more details of these multiple hierarchy assets that you will see here on these ones. But because our level is small, I want to keep the assets modular like this, just so that I can make changes if we need to move something. It's not like I need to move every single piece. It's just a small chunk. I can move it, no problem. Okay. So let's take a look at another asset. And just like this, all these assets were created the same. This is another one, for example. I use these pieces to create something like it's not a box. You can see it here, like I'm using this asset. Let me show you another one. Like for example, this one is for the second floor. And I want you to look at them as if every face of the asset, it's a different asset. So some people think this is one asset. It's not one asset. This asset has 6 faces. 5 that you can see. 1, 2, the ones in the back, and the other one, and the roof. So if you want to add variation to your environment, think of assets as faces, because at any given moment you will only see faces. So if you have things like this, for example, it's like, oh, I want to create another asset and this is very repetitive. I don't want that. No problem. Just rotate 180 degrees and you should be good to go. Right? So you have something like this. Or you can rotate like this. And you get the idea. Every face, it's a different asset. Some people use the same, I mean, not the same, but they don't really add too much variation for different types of faces, right? So when you rotate, it's like, oh, it's kind of similar, right? And you don't really want that. Okay, you don't really want that. Okay. Let's go into look another example. This one is a more complex example. So I will show you that later. First, I will go through your questions very quickly. So, Sergey, I recently participated in a game jam. I had to design the level, had to do the layout and some primitive modeling, then apply materials to 3D assets. 3D modeler could do. How does this normally work? Well, the modeling tools, technically you can model with them, but the toolset is not very robust. Like, for example, I can do very basic stuff here. I can just go here, go to model, move this up, maybe insert an edge loop, done, extrude, do something like this, and maybe I can go here, I can put a bevel, just like that. Yeah, I can put like 20, accept, and I can have things like that. And then I can put a material. Let me try to look for something. Maybe this one. And then I can change the UVs. I can maybe project UVs. I can do this as a box. I can check the checkerboard. You see there's a little bit of stretching here. Let's make everything look kind of square. Kind of square. As square as possible. Well, it looks very square to me. Let's take a look at the original material. And you can change the tiling if you don't want. For example, I can scale this by 2 or by 0.5 if you want it. Accept. And then you have an asset that you can use perfectly with other assets. You can also change the pivot point, like transform, edit pivot. You can put it at the bottom, at the top, at the left, anywhere you want. Or you can move it manually if you want. I can put it at the bottom here. And I can duplicate this asset. I can have something like this. I don't know. But you can definitely model with the tools in Unreal. But if you want to get this level of detail, you need to model by hand. This is... I know how they made this because I used to make those by hand back then. You know how you do this? You put the texture here and you model brick by brick. And if you think that takes time, you're right. It takes a lot of time. So you model each one of those assets manually. Obviously, there are a lot of tools you can use. You can use displacement and a lot of stuff. But for this kind of stuff, it is manual work. And you can see all the vertex are connected to give a natural flow to it. These are very well done assets. So typically what you expect from a AAA game, to have this level of detail. These are modeled by hand. I'm not gonna lie to you, this is very hard to model inside Unreal. So I wouldn't go that route. But for simple stuff, you can just model something simple, and then you can replace it with an asset that have similar shape or form that you can model on a 3D package, and then import it here. You can replace those assets. Okay. How do you overcome texture repetition for tiling materials? It's very simple. You cannot avoid texture repetition. I'm going to show you a good example. How about here? Actually, let's open this. If I remove all these assets, what do you think about the texture repetition? It is there, right? Obviously, it's not too obvious, but it is there. Like, you cannot put something like this. You can tell these assets are using the same texture. All right. And while this example is less extreme, the best thing you can do is to put assets. You see that tiling? Now you don't. That's the easiest way. That's the easiest way. Without changing anything, without any kind of material without any kind of material tricks or anything. As simple as it is, you just put assets on it. Now you don't see the texture tiling. The reason you see the tiling is because you don't have enough assets in your scene. Okay. Am I using word partition? I am using word partition. But it's mostly for, you know, word partition is very good for open worlds, but it's also very good for organization. Like, I haven't really compiled the top-down layout of this map, but if I did, like, I think you go build. Is it build here, or let me check? Build word partition editor minimap. I'm not gonna do it now, but as soon as you do that, you will see that it will take a screenshot, like a top-down screenshot. Then you will be able to see more assets easier, right? So just keep that in mind. Game size Cooper. No, really, this is actually very small size. This is actually very small size. These environment assets are not using trim sheets. You could use trim sheets, but that's more of a question of the modeling part. You use trim sheets to model, so you put a texture on top of it, and then you model, and then you like extrude the assets so that you can have the same shape and form of your texture. And you can also save some texture memory if you use trim sheets. But these assets are not. Like one example you will think of, for example, this asset. This asset here, it could be one model, right? There's no one who can tell you it cannot. And then in your trim sheets, you will have this texture here. And then you will have the trim sheet here. And you will just, align the UVs in your modeling program. But this in particular is using single assets that are repeated over and over again. And because of the way they're made, they are very natural. You don't really notice, even though they are repeating. You can even like go 180 degrees, and you will see that it works a little bit. So trim sheets is more for modular. You don't have to use trim sheets, but it helps in the long term. If you have like a lot of assets that share common textures, it helps to model them using those trim sheets, but you don't have to. It's just an option. I am working with landscapes in this floor. Take a look. And you will see it's a lot of wasted space, but you can always delete those components when you're finished with your game. They won't load. And I'm using material I have for free available in our website. If you want this landscape material, it does like as you can see, I'm only using one texture. I haven't painted even the ground, just to let you know, guys, that this is still like not finished at all. The ground is not its final form. It's only one texture. I haven't even painted more layers. But because I'm using a nice material, from distance the tiling gets bigger, and as I zoom in the camera, it gets smaller. Then you don't really notice the tiling. You can go to the website. I think there is some tools. I think it is art tools, and you can download the landscape material there, as well as some rock materials that have similar functionality. We're gonna talk about the floor later. How big is your landscape? I'm not sure. It's quite small, actually. 1, 2, 3, 4 components, 4x4 components. It's very small. It's very small. I think it's the default that Unreal gives you when you want to create a new landscape. It's the same. And I just model by hand. Some areas like this, for example, I can just sculpt them. And later on, I can put more assets. I don't want to rely on the landscape for all the visual quality of the game. You also want to rely on some assets. What version I'm using? I'm using 5.3. I think it's 5.32. Yeah. How do you work with position with geometry? For example, placing one wall next to another vertex to vectors to avoid generating the glitch look. So there are two ways you can go about it. This is the glitch look you're referring to, right? This is called sea fighting. That's the term they use. It's where the geometry is at the same position with another geometry, and it creates this kind of artifact. I'm sure if you play some games, sometimes they have this issue where you have this flickering here that happens when two geometries overlap. The easy solution is make everything snap. And you will see I have a little bit of flickering here because this doesn't snap. So you need to use the snapping tools when you model and make sure everything is the same size. The other way is you're not using very precise tools, but because of things of this nature are very organic, you can just move them like this, overlap a little bit, and you won't really notice, right? And you don't need to follow the grid for this example. You don't really need to think about those, because these assets, they are not really, take a look at the dimensions, 98 by 14 by 70 centimeters. You cannot snap there. It's very hard. It's very hard to snap to this asset. So, but because of the silhouette it has, I'll show you a pro trick here. You see this here? This is called silhouette. And this is what makes your environment look interesting. You know what's boring? Flat line. And when you model, by nature, you have flat lines at the beginning, but you need to break the silhouette if you want to add details to your environment. So I wouldn't worry too much about the grid if you're working like that. You can use the vertex snapping tools, but you don't need to. This is not perfectly aligned. It's good enough. And you don't like this line? Put a flag here. Sort it. How do you make PlayStation 5 game loading screen while a level loads? Well, a loading screen is just a level. It just looks like a loading screen. I could make this a loading screen. And then, you know, that's what you will see. You need to decorate your loading screen too. How long have you been doing Unreal Engine? And if you can go back in time when you start, what will you tell your younger self what to learn first when it comes to Unreal? That's actually a very good question. I've been doing it for probably already over 12 years. I started back then with Unreal Engine 3. And if I can go back in time, you know, I was very into technology before. I was very into, you know, what's the bottom? What's the new feature? What's the, you know, what's new? I want, because in my mind, it's like, if I have a better tool, I will create a better game, right? That's not true. That's not true. There are many games older than games that you see today from made many years ago, and they still are great. So I wouldn't focus so much on the tools. I focused too much on the tools, and I was like looking, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, because eventually my role also is a little bit of a mix of a technical art too, not entirely environment art, because some people don't know. I don't know if you know, but not everyone knows everything in a game studio. Some people don't know how to use Unreal because they use the proprietary engine. They don't know how to use Unreal. Some people don't know how to make textures. They only know how to model, for example. They are very specialized. They are very, very specialized. So if I had to do it all over again, I will focus on the foundation. What is the foundation? Well, it depends on what you want to learn. If you want to learn programming, learn the fundamentals of programming. A great place to learn the fundamentals of programming was 3D Bus. 3D Bus. You can check all their tutorials for free in YouTube. They're a little bit old, but fundamentals are, you know, they don't get old. They are there for a reason. They are good. Like, once you know that, man, you can program everything. You just need to learn a little bit of how to use Unreal and the specifics of it. But once you learn how to program, how to use your logic, how to train your logic, especially this kind of thing takes years to learn, right? If you want to go for the art side of things, learn art foundation, learn painting, learn sculpting, learn art composition. And the only way to do that, it's fundamentals. Don't even touch the software. Don't even open Unreal Engine. Just paint, paint, paint. I wouldn't even recommend sculpting. I will believe like painting is even more important. Painting and drawing color theory. Like a good exercise you can do is you put a image, a photo, and then put it on black and white or in color if you want to challenge yourself, and then just paint it exactly like it looks like. Exactly like it looks like. And do it over and over and over again, several times. 10, 20, 30, 100 times. And keep setting those foundations for at least 1 year, 2 years. Then you go to Unreal and you will see, you will have judgment. You will see things like, oh, this thing looks wrong. I don't like the silhouette. I don't like this color. I should make things like this. So I will focus more on the fundamentals. What's my PC specs? It's an old computer, actually. It's pretty good for almost everything except Unreal. Unreal is quite okay, to be honest. Unreal is quite heavy for most computers, but this one has 32 gigabytes of RAM, NVIDIA RTX 2070 Super graphics card, and 1 terabyte SSD. And you know, the processor is i7. I don't even remember the details, but it's a good one. But it's a laptop, and it's 4 years old, so keep that in mind. Now, obviously, you can tell I'm lagging here, and I'm using a 2K monitor, but I have to lower the resolution to 1K when I use Unreal. So if you have a bigger monitor, that also affects. You can also go here and where is the agent scalability settings? You can just go to low or medium if you can't afford an expensive computer and you really want to use Unreal. Just go low and medium. I mean, it looks worse, but it works. It works quite good. How much this level take to make the landscape? Just minutes. I mean, literally, it's a flat plane, and I just sculpted some parts of it. Let me go for here. I just sculpt here. You know? And you know, make some things like going up, going down, things like that. Or I can use the erosion tool. Erosion is quite a good one. I can go here, and it's usually for parts like this where you want to have a more of a natural look. You don't really need to worry about. And you will see that my ground got tessellation. I can just rebuild the data, and then I will have my tessellation there. Prince, I'm 38. I'm starting to doing 2D art and learning XSI back in college. 2009. It was very tedious to render, and I ended up doing my work in After Effects. Now I'm starting to learn Unreal for motion graphics. Unreal for motion graphics is actually the right time to jump into with 5.4 because they have a new plugin where you can use motion graphics inside Unreal. And I'm not into motion graphics, but I hear it's quite good. So you say you have the fundamentals. Are you sure you have them? Because they take years to learn. Years. I'm talking about 1 year, 2 years. It's something that you constantly need to practice over and over your whole career. And learning the real part is easy, to be honest. Like if anyone is selling you a course or charging you for learning how to use Unreal, it's like teaching you how to use the pencil instead of teaching you how to draw. Right? Learning Unreal, everything is free. On the internet, in the manual, everything. What you should learn is the foundation of game development, the foundation of things. They will develop your judgment. There are a lot of skills you cannot skip. So don't worry, learning Unreal will be very easy for you, especially when you already have some background. When you already have some fundamentals, it becomes quite easier to learn Unreal. Thinking of how to model a castle in Unreal Engine. On your website, could it be possible to teach how to build environments like dungeons, houses, or villages? It's the same foundation. If you want to build a dungeon, just use the rocks or whatever to make the layout and just put the assets there. It's quite easy. You don't need to model them if you want, but if you want to use some modeling tools for organic stuff, is not very good. You can use Megascan's assets or whatever. Or if you want to model yourself, you can definitely do that. Houses, it's the same. But if that's the thing. If you don't know the foundation, like how do you model the house, you don't know where to start. Obviously, you need reference, you need a lot of those stuff. Then you need to see the shapes. See the shapes of all this stuff. Like, why do I put a roof here? It's not a logical decision. I just think about the silhouette here. It's like, this silhouette is really interesting to me. I will keep it. If I remove this, take a look at the silhouette here. No silhouette. Flat. Total flat. Right? So a lot of things. A website I recommend is New Masters Academy. If you want to learn how to paint all this stuff, go there. They have really good instructors. Okay. I'm going to continue with the environment, because I still have quite a few things to show you. Let's talk about the ground, because a lot of people may think that it's very, might have a lot of details, maybe thinking about the landscape, especially when you play, you can see the displacement and everything is quite detailed, right? And it's very easy, to be honest. I find two types of textures. One is chaotic, and another one, it's more simple. Usually in art, you combine those two, and then you have looks like a sad face, a good image. If it's too chaotic, it's too much noise. If it's too simple, it's too boring. So when you combine the two of those, you can have, like, something interesting to look at. So what I have here, I download this material. Okay, I download this material, and this is my, let me show you this on a cube. This is my simple material. Simple material. This is another simple material. Let me open this. This is another simple material. This is even more simple. And then this is a little bit chaotic. Okay. So let me open up this. So guys, what do you see here? How do you choose your textures? I remember one person was asking me on Discord, I want to know exactly which texture you use for this tutorial. And I really don't have the answer because that tutorial I made many years ago. And to be honest, I don't know which texture I use. So how do you know which textures to use? When I look at this, I don't look at them in a very logical way. Normally when you see this, it's like, oh, this is a stone wall. This is a cracked pavement. This is a cobblestone. That's not what I look at. I look this in terms of shapes. Let's look at the most simple shape here. It is basically squares. Why? How do you know this shape is simple? Because you kind of know what's the pattern. Like if I need to duplicate this wall and copy it, you will kind of know like how it will look, right? If you copy it. It's very simple. This kind of texture, forget about what it is. Forget about the logical part of your brain. Turn it off for a moment. This part is just easy. This is what we call resting the eye. For me, not much going on here. Very simple texture. And then a lot of people make this mistake because, oh, I have access to all these amazing textures, just like this one, have a lot of detail. So I'm gonna use everything with a lot of detail. And sorry, let me drink some water. I will use everything with a lot of detail and then my game will look good. Right? How many of you have seen that? I've seen that quite a lot of time. Whereas this pattern, how do you describe this pattern? This pattern is more chaotic. There is some bricks here. There's some brick like this, like in a rounded shape, and there's this part here that I cannot really tell what it is. It looks like a flat wall, and then it has like a brick here, and another brick with this shape. So if I duplicate this, and I ask you like, can you predict how it's gonna look like? You cannot, because it's too chaotic. It's too much randomness in it. So this doesn't make your eye rest. If you take a look at this, let's find some, maybe here. This is a very good example. What your eye sees is your eye. I don't know, this is your eye. You're looking and you're watching the environment. You say, oh, this is simple. Let's go. And your eye continue to look. And then you find this. And your eye looks like this. Stops for a moment. This is like stopping for a moment. This is rest. And then you find areas of rest like this one, for example. You can just move around until you find something like this and you stop for a moment. So how you choose your textures is based on complexity. You have a little bit of complex textures, such as this one. Take a look at this. And I just put it there next to the landscape to have it blend. Or you can have simple ones like this, right? Why I chose this pattern, because I already have a square pattern here, I can have more of a different type of pattern. I see things in terms of patterns and shapes, not as, you know, their logical, their real meaning, you know. So it's very easy to model those. I'm gonna show you very quickly. I'm just gonna go here to a rectangle. I'm gonna make a 400 by 400. I do it very quickly. Let's add one of these, probably this one. Let's add it here. And you see it's very flat. Let's go to mesh, go to remesh, leave it like that. And then go to deform, go to displace. Now you will see that the default is barely noise. You don't want that. You want to use the texture to the map. Go here, wrap this texture here, go on blue. And then you can put something like 50. Oh, and texture, visual texture is here. So what you can do, if you have virtual textures, you can just duplicate this one. Normally you don't have this problem, but if you're using virtual textures in your project, just convert to a regular texture. And now you go again here and you put it here. And there you go. You put like, I don't know, 80, just to be very extreme. Okay, so leave it like that. And now you can go for deform, go to lattice, go 3 by 3 by 3. Cube. This soft deformation can also be, and you can choose this, make a little bit of a something like that. Not this one. Let's not use this one here. There you go. Something like that, like a little bump, like it goes up and then down. Okay. The next thing, gonna enable nanite and change the complexity of the asset. Apply. And now you can put it here. You see that it's you don't want to show the edges of this, so there are a couple of things you can do. Go to lattice, go here, just go make it down a little bit, make those down just like that. And you can also sculpt in the landscape. You can go here, landscape, sculpt some areas here that you want to hide. Something like this. And then you will have things like that. You can even sculpt here. And you can see how the environment, it's on the edges of those bricks, which is very nice, right? It's much more natural. And here, like, you know, it's floating. You can sculpt a little bit here and then smooth things out just to make things a little bit more natural. And you get the idea, right? That's how I made all the ground. It really has. Let's rebuild the landscape just because I like the way it looks. So that's it for the landscape. Very simple. Very simple. Now let's go back to this, because this one, this asset, it's the same one repeated. I don't know how many times. Can you tell? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, more than 20. And from, if you look them like that, maybe you can tell they are the same. But for the most part, you cannot. For the most part, they are quite unique. The way you do this is to have hierarchies in here. So this asset, it's one blueprint, right? So if I go here, I can go like this. But also, I have this. This is the wall. And if I want to make another wall, it's very easy. I can just duplicate here, 90 degrees. Want to make a bigger version? Just duplicate again. Now I can make another version of this if I want, like change some of these assets, move around things. But this asset here, to edit, you will see that I can move all of this. Or I can edit this one. And I can go into every single wall that every side has. And I can change it. If I remove this wall, I put it like this, you will see that all the walls will be removed. Obviously, I don't want to do that, but you can see how the hierarchy works here. And remember where I told you like each side has a different identity? This is one asset. This is one asset. The wall behind this is one asset. So basically I have 4 assets here that I'm using, not one. If for whatever reason it becomes very repetitive, very, monotone, you can decide to create another group. Maybe something thinner, taller, something like that. But I decided to make each face different for this one, because I want to have control over every side of this. Every side of it. So I put these assets here. And if I change one of those, the whole level will update. And this asset is being used over and over here. There are some areas that probably the player won't go. I don't really need to worry about those. But if it gets too repetitive, you just add more things. Like, oh, this is actually very repetitive. Let me add something else. You can create another group, or you can start adding more assets. Let's take a look at this one. This one is quite interesting. Let's take a look at the level blueprint. So you have the table. You can use this table to put it somewhere else. And you can arrange those things. This is actually take a look at this. This is another blueprint, right? It's not like a single blueprint has all the assets. No, I already made one. What if I want to use this somewhere else? Maybe I want to use it here. Have some storytelling, maybe. Maybe this is a house of a guy who sells vegetables, fruits, whatever. You can also edit. That's another table. See, this is another asset. Why this is separate? Because maybe I want to have the canopy different. Let me take a look at this. So for example, Middle East props, level instances, I have the store here. And if I want to create another variation, I just need to grab some assets and create those. Very easy. Now notice that I've gone to big to small, like from these assets into those minor details. These assets are actually very important because these are the ones that hide these boring parts of the modular pieces. By nature, modular pieces are repetitive. That's what makes them modular, right? You cannot have modular pieces that are not repeated. That's not the concept of it. The concept of modular pieces is you have the same pieces that you duplicate together so that you can create a bigger piece, right? But that in and of itself, it's very useful for game development, but it's very bad for art because it just looks artificial. So you use this type of assets to hide those imperfections in your environment. And I don't have many of those here because, like I said, there's still a lot of plenty of work to do in the map, and I don't want to go into small details with these assets. So if I can put some flags, I can put like balconies. I can, for example, this one, I don't really like it. I can put a balcony here. If I wanted, I could do that. I could do that. And everything will update. I can put one of those. So it's all about thinking about the hierarchies. And if you do that, you create a new level. You can just start duplicating these assets here. And move them around just like that. And you can play from here. Oh, never mind, my character was there. But you could start playing from here and you can just walk here and you have an alley. And it looks different. Each face looks different. Each face has a different identity. Except you use this one, for example, like, doesn't make any sense, but you change the face, suddenly you don't need to worry about stuff. Nobody will notice. You don't need to be afraid of. And if you notice, maybe you can put a flag here. Maybe you can put a small prop here. The more variation you add, it's going to be easier for you to get those modular pieces not being so repetitive. Hopefully it makes sense, guys. Let me go through some of your questions. What are some tips to avoid game development hell as a solo developer? I think the big thing is the scope of the project. Back then, when I started out, a lot of my time was not spent actually making the game, was spent researching how to make the game. And that's time that I didn't consider. So it will really depend on your experience. Like this one, it took me like 3 weeks, less than that, because I've been doing this for a while, right? So obviously experience makes you work faster, but try to focus on the game. If what it is that you want to do is to create a game, just focus on creating the game. Like, you don't know how to make assets, download some assets. These are free assets. These are placeholder assets that we are using. These are from the marketplace. They don't look amazing, but for now, for a placeholder, it's okay. Now our model, let me see if I can find here. There you go. This one is actually very high quality, but the animations are placeholder. These animations are not the final ones, but you know, they work. And you know what? If you don't have the budget to create better animations, just use the ones you have. Try to use as much leverage as possible as a solo developer, because everything in game development takes time. Everything in game development takes time. And what you think is gonna take 1 month maybe takes 2 or 3. And this environment took me maybe 3 weeks. And the idea is, if you want to create another level, you already have these assets. It's gonna be faster. You don't need to do them again. But if I model this stuff by hand, probably it will take me 3 weeks just to model the assets without even starting the level. So it's quite a lot of work. So you need to know what's important for you. If you want to work for a company, like I did, you want to specialize in making environments, then you want to learn how to make them. You don't want to use other people's assets. You want to learn the process. And that will take time. And I'm telling you, most likely you will not finish your game, but you will learn a lot. Because a lot of that time you're using it for learning, not for actually making the game. But once that step is out of the way, then you're free to use, anything really. Like, you can use any kind of asset, and it's not like you don't know how to do those assets. You know how to do them. It's just you don't have the time for it. It's a very, very different situation. Can we get high quality assets free anywhere? Do you have any suggestion where we can get better assets on low cost? If you're talking about assets like this will never be free. Unless they are from Epic, they are from other projects, and they reuse the assets of those projects to share them with the developers. Epic has very high quality assets. But if you're looking for something different, something more unique, for free, very unlikely. Very unlikely. It's because most of them are, it takes a lot of effort. You could use 3D scanning to make your modular pieces too, but it's also a lot of work. So it's tricky. Assets that are high quality for free, very hard. Assets with normal quality that are free, there are many, plenty of them. In what cases do you recommend vertex paint? This is a good example of a case where I recommend vertex paint. This material doesn't have, it's a simple material. It doesn't have vertex painting, but I don't want the ground to be like this. I want to have some control over the, the assets, right? Or if I want to go into finer details, I can add vertex painting for those assets. And maybe I can paint some moss, for example, on top of it. Or maybe you are having a snow level and you will have your snow on top, and you can use vertex painting for remove the snow in parts where you don't want. So it's for smaller details. Like for this one, for example, you don't really need to, because it already have a lot of layers of textures. Like you have the brick, you have the plaster, and you have different shapes. So it's very nice. It's very nice to look at. You don't really need it. But if you want to alter the texture and you want to give some uniqueness into it, then for sure, vertex painting will work on those cases. Can you in the end connect them together to create one mesh from these parts? Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me show you an example. Let me see if I can. Assets, meshes, building details, walls. Let's just make a quick sample. I want to merge these two. And I don't want to use level instance blueprint. Very easy. Go to modeling. Go to merge, transform merge. And this will be a new object. And that's it. Now this is a new asset. It works quite well. So that's how you combine assets. How do you decide when to combine? Like for example, in these ones, these assets were combined. Take a look at each wood plank. It's an asset, right? So I did use, let me see if I can find it here. 3D assets. I have my wood planks here. There you go. I have my boards here that I use. So I don't really want to work at that level of detail where every single plank is an instance level blueprint. I want to create like a, I can duplicate those. I can create my wood plank just like this, just like I did here. And I can go modeling, transform, merge, and this will be a new asset. So let me, just like this. And my asset is here. It used to be a wood line. And how do you deal with the collision? Very simple. Very simple. Let me remove that complex collision here. You can just hit apply. And that's it. If you have too many triangles, it's very easy. Go to modeling, model, go to mesh, simplify, maybe 50% cheaper, accept. That's it. Now this is an ugly example, but you can see I use the same here for these ones, right? So that I don't work like plank by plank. It's too tedious. In those cases, I merge the assets because it doesn't make sense to me to have a single asset for a wood plank. It's just, I'm not going into that level of detail yet. If your frame varies, I think there are some preference here. I don't know if it's in the editor preference or in the project settings. I'll take a look at this. No, this is not the one. This is not the one. There's another setting. There you go. Smooth frame rate range. And you have a minimum and maximum. That's there for a reason. To be honest, I should put it. I should put it. When you use a smooth frame rate, I think you can just change the values and you will just change the number of frames you use. You can also use a fixed frame rate for whatever you're using. For example, me, where is the unit? Show FPS. You can tell I'm 47 frames per second. depending on where I look at, I will have at most 60, which is fine for me. I don't need more. All right, guys, hopefully this has been a informative session. If you want to learn how to create a game from scratch, we do have a course on that. During the streaming, there is a discount. After the streaming is finished, the discount coupon is no longer available. Okay, so we want to give you guys the opportunity to, you know, if you're watching this, probably you're making some efforts into getting into game development. If the course is not really what you're looking for, or you don't really want to spend, no worries. Have plenty of free content, high quality tutorials available in our channel, ready for you to use. And I'm sure you will also learn a lot there without paying anything. So feel free to go there. But if you want to learn step by step how to create a game, all these steps, like from the very beginning, how to apply everything little by little until you finish the game, then you might as well take a look at the action game course, because it is really, really good. It is. We're very proud of that one. So, but anyway, I will see you in the next session, probably in a few weeks. Let me know in the comments in this video which kind of topic you would like to watch, and I will do my best to arrange something for you guys. Okay, that's it for me. Hope you had a good time. Hopefully this has been useful to you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.